Hello, Happy Valley. Today's video is all about the element of art known as color. Of all the visual elements, color is the most fascinating and puzzling. Because of its effects on people, color has been studied more than any other element in art. And to top it all off, it is my absolute favorite to teach of the 7 elements. In this unit, we will learn all about the color wheel and its color schemes, such as achromatic, primary, secondary, tertiary, analogous, complementary. These are just to name a few. Anyway, let's get started. The element of art, color. So let's define color. And it's kind of a difficult concept, so I break this down into 2 definitions. The first being what I call scientific color. So physically, we see white light reflecting off of a surface, and that translates into colors. In order to see colors in nature, we need light. Now, there was a famous experiment done over, 300 years ago by Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. And it demonstrated that color is a property of light. So he found when a beam of light is passing through a glass object, or known as a prism, that the light is divided into 7 colors of the rainbow. Now, each of these colors represents a different ray of light. All 7 rays of light, these are small fraction numbers of rays, and they make up what we know as the visual spectrum. So Sir Isaac Newton demonstrated that white light includes all of those spectrum colors. Now let me explain that a little bit more. So on the screen you have the electromagnetic spectrum over here on the right hand side. So you have gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, all these rays that you learn about in science. And then in between ultraviolet and infrared rays, you have this little section right here. And when we open it up, that becomes the visual spectrum. That's what the human eye can see. So our superheroes can see X-rays, can see ultraviolet rays. They can see all the other stuff that we as regular humans cannot. So we can only see a small fraction of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We see the visual spectrum. And have you ever heard of that acronym, Roy G. Biv? That's where this comes from. Okay, so I call this science color. And what it's saying is that when the sun releases white light, here's the white light, it's going into the object, and here's our red apple. All of those wavelengths, all of those different colors are going into that apple, and that apple is absorbing them, except one. It's absorbing all of the colors except red, and it's reflecting red off. So therefore, we see this apple as red. Now, I call this science color because this is talking about things in nature. This is not talking about art. Art is a whole different thing when we talk about color. So when we're talking about color in art, we're talking about pigments. We're talking about things that are mixed together, that are created. So pigments like powdered pigments, things that you find in nature in these minerals, and we take them and we create them. Now, today we create a lot of synthetic stuff, a lot of fake color. Don't even begin to ask me how we do that. I don't know. But what we do is we have these colors, and we can mix them. All right, and we mix them together, and what we're doing is we are preventing white light, something from nature. We're preventing that from happening. So if you look at anything that you have, look around you right now, anything that's been man-made, that's talking about art color. Okay, we mixed something in the plastic that we created it with. We mixed that, and it is now, we're blocking white light from hitting that object, and we are making it the way we want. Okay, there's a difference when we talk about science color versus art color. Let's go a little bit further into this. So we have 2 ways that we can discuss it. Additive is science color. Okay, additive. Think of adding, right? We're adding white light, right? Part of that visual spectrum. When we're adding this light to the object, it's creating the color. Then we have subtractive. We are subtracting. We are taking away that white light and we are making it what we want it to be. Okay. So additive colors are things that are pure. Colors are added up to form white light. On the other hand, subtractive, these are impure. So we are subtracting that white light from happening. Now, in art, there are three properties or terms that we use when we discuss and describe colors. And one of those is hue. So you'll hear me say this a lot, the hue. And a hue is the family name of a color. So when you say red, blue, green, orange, these are the hue, the family name. Okay, let's talk about blue for a minute. Blue, that's the family name. But then there's so many types of blue. There's robin's egg blue, there's cobalt blue, there's navy blue, there's sky blue, there's periwinkle. Okay, these are all underneath that family name because they are all what? Hues of blue. Okay, so when you talk about crimson or burgundy or infrared, these are all colors that fall under the hue of red. The second property is intensity, or sometimes referred to as saturation. So the intensity or the saturation is the strength, okay? How bright or dull that color can become, not to be confused with value. And I'm going to explain the two here in a moment. All right, so intensity is how dull the color is. Okay, when you pull that intensity out, you're making it less intense. You're losing that strength, and that color is going to become more dull. Then you have value, and that's simply how light or dark. So adding, darkness to something or lightening it. Now, it's hard to tell the difference, but I'm going to get into intensity, saturation, and value. So, first of all, let's talk about the intensity and saturation. Now, I know you guys play around with this all the time. You know, all of our apps that we use, Instagram, Snapchat, we can play around. And there's so many apps out there where you can play around and photo edit. And one of those things that you probably notice on there is the intensity or the saturation. And so you can pull out some of that intensity. You can dull that picture. You can make it look more black and white, or you can oversaturate and add to it and make it look more intense, more vibrant. So value versus intensity. All colors have an inherited value. We talked about that in the last unit. For example, a true yellow is lighter in value when compared to a true blue, which is much darker. So if we look over here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see this. Here are the colors. Here they have been transitioned to a black and white or a value scale. So you can see that blue is much darker in value than yellow. Well, we can change a color's value by adding white or black to it. And we'll talk about that here in a minute, but that's known as tint or shade. So if we add white to something or we add black pigment to something, we can change the value. Intensity, on the other hand, is the amount of purity, of trueness in the hue. So we can change the intensity of something by adding gray to it. And gray is a mixture of white and black, known as tone. All right, so when we add gray to something, we are making it less intense. We are dulling it. when we want to change the value, we add black or white. So let's talk about these black, white, and gray, tint, tone, and shade. So the terms tint, shade, and tone all refer to values and intensities. Okay. So when we're working with paints or when we're working with colors and we want to change the values of it or the tones of it, the intensities of it, we add things to them. So a tint, when you say a tint of a hue, that's simply adding white to it. So we've got red as our base here. Okay. As we add a little bit more white to it, it becomes lighter in value. Okay. Its value becomes lighter and it goes more towards a pink shade. If we want it to become darker in value, we simply add black to it, and that's known as a shade. The easiest way to remember that is when you shade something, or if you're standing in the shade, it's going to look darker. And then we have tone. Tone is simply adding gray. How do you make gray? Add a little bit of white, add a little bit of black, make a tone. If you want to make something more dull, you want to remove some of that intensity, then you're going to add gray to it, and it's just going to become a less vibrant and less saturated color. Now, for artists, the most useful tool in art, I think, is the color wheel. It's like a puzzle, but each hue, each color is placed in a specific space. Now, being familiar with this color wheel and understanding its purpose is going to help you in so many ways, especially when it comes to mixing colors, understanding color schemes, etc. So understanding and knowing your color wheel will help you with anything based in color. We have things called color schemes. And this is just something that we use to describe how we arrange or combine colors. There are so many color combinations. There are so many color schemes in art. And for this unit, we're only going to brush up on, the most important, the most essential of them. But there are so many. Our first one, we've kind of worked with this already. This is an achromatic color scheme. When you have the word a in front of a word, it becomes, it changes that word to saying without or no. So when we have achromatic, chromatic meaning color, this means without color. And it's just referring to black, white, and varieties of gray. Okay. So if you're working with an achromatic color scheme like these pictures below, these are all achromatic paintings. They've only worked with these different values. Okay, they worked with black, white, and then those values in between. Now, separate to that would be monochromatic. Mono meaning one. Chromatic meaning color. So that's just saying we're talking about all the colors of a single hue. So here we have as our example, we have a value scale of red. Right? We have tints, shades, and tones. Well, more like tints and shades of this value, ranging from the lightest color here on the left-hand side towards the darkest color. All of these colors follow under that one single hue, which is red. And below that, we just have monochromatic paintings of one color. So we have the pear that's done in green. We have the scissors that's done in the blue. And then we have the little boardwalk that's done in more of a yellow-based monochromatic color scheme. All right, so let's talk about our color wheel for a minute. Primary colors. These are 3 colors from which all colors are created. Now, before we really get into depth here, I want to just mention that when we're talking about what we're about to go over is color theory. Color theory is the theory, right? The study, the idea. There's a difference between theory and practice. And you'll recognize this throughout your entire life, okay? There's theories, there's ideas on how you do things, and then there's actual practice when you go to do them. And they sometimes don't necessarily correlate. Okay. But a theory, or this theory, is primary colors. We're talking about art color now. It's created from 3 colors. Right? These are the main 3: red, yellow, and blue. What they're saying is that no other color, or these colors, cannot be created from anything else. Red, yellow, blue. That's it. They are prime. Think about a prime number in math. Prime meaning it cannot be broken down any further. Okay. Same thing here. These colors cannot be broken down any further. Now, all colors are created from these 3. So they're mixed together in equal proportions. Again, that's a theory, and they create other colors. So the primary colors are placed on the color wheel in what I call a positive triadic formation. Okay, they make a positive triangle, right? The tip of the triangle is facing upwards. Okay, so we have red positioned up at the very top. We have 3 spaces in between, and we have the yellow. 3 spaces in between. Then we have blue, 3 spaces in between. Okay, so it makes a positive triangular or triadic formation. Then we have secondary colors. Think of 2. Okay, you're the second one, 2. So that's created by mixing equal portions of 2 primaries. Remember, primary meaning 1, or it cannot be broken down, a primary number. So think of prime as 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Art math, super easy. It's about the only kind of math I can do. But we have 3 secondary colors, and that's orange, green, and violet. These 3 colors are mixed when 2 of those primary colors are mixed together to create that secondary. So in order to make one, we have a primary red and a primary yellow. When they mix together, they make a secondary color of orange. A primary yellow and a primary blue, when they mix together, they make a secondary green. A primary of red and a primary of blue, when they mix together, they make a secondary of violet. Looking at our color wheel, right now we have the primaries placed on here. We're going to add our secondaries. Our secondaries make a negative triangle, one that points down. Okay. Now look in between here. So here is our red up at the top. Here is our yellow. When they meet right in the middle, directly in the middle, they make the orange. Primary yellow, primary blue. When they meet directly in the middle, they make secondary green. Primary red, primary blue. When they meet in the middle, they make a secondary violet. So now we have just one space in between these colors on that color wheel. All right, we're getting even more complicated. Going to tertiary. Think of 3. So this is created when a primary, a 1, is mixed with a secondary, a 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. When you work with a tertiary color, you will always have the primary as the first part of the name. And they did not get created with these tertiary colors. I wish they would have. And I like to have a little fun with it because they're just so boring. One thing I will say is if you ever work with a box of crayons, and I could just, me along with a lot of other art teachers, we could just go and choke Crayola because they will put the secondary name in front of the primary sometimes. I don't know why they did it that way, but it's so confusing for some of our students, and it's frustrating as art teachers because we're trying to teach the correct theories and the correct philosophies and ideas of color, and then here we go, Crayola, they go and screw it all up for us. But anyway, there are 6 tertiary colors. And again, they have the primary as the first part of the name. So you have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and red, violet. Well, let's talk about mixing these. When you take a primary red, mixing it with a secondary orange, you're going to get a tertiary of red-orange, or what I would like to call rorange. I wish they would have had fun with these names. Mixing a primary of yellow with a secondary of orange, you're going to get yellow-orange. So simple. It's simply taking the first name with the second name and combining them. What I like to call orange. Taking your primary of yellow, mixing it with your secondary of green is going to give you yellow-green, or what I like to call yeen. Taking your primary of blue, mixing it with your secondary of green, and that's going to give you your tertiary of blue-green, or what I call bleen. Taking your primary of blue, mixing it with your secondary of violet, and it gives you the tertiary of blue-violet, or what I call blilet. Taking your primary of red, mixing it with your secondary of violet, it's going to give you the tertiary of red-violet, or what I like to call rylet. So here's our color wheel. We have our primaries as the positive triangle, the secondaries as the negative triangle, and in between these spaces come our tertiaries. So again, we have our primary, our secondary. When they mix together, they become our tertiary. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Understanding the placement on that color wheel is going to help you out so much when you're working with these color schemes. Know that color wheel. I cannot stress it enough. Now, we also have something called a neutral color scheme, referred to as earth tones. These are just white, black, grays, browns. So those are your tint tone shades. And you know, this up here on the board or on the screen, you'll see the reflection of all colors. That's talking about science. Okay, so when you hear white, we're talking about the reflection of all colors. That's white light. Okay. In art, it's just white. It's just white. Okay. Black is in science that would be the absorption or absence of all colors. Have you heard of a black hole? Because it's absorbed everything in, it sucked everything in. Gray, again, a neutral color, and brown, also a neutral color. Now, we have warm color schemes. These are, there's 6 colors. If you look at the color wheel over the top right-hand corner, it's half of the color wheel, ranging from red, violet, all the way down to yellow. Okay. Now, warm colors, I associate these with sunlight, with heat, and so they are all these shades except yellow-green. So they include reds, oranges, yellows, except yellow-green. Again, red, violet, red, orange, orange, yellow, orange, and yellow. It's that half of the color wheel. The other side of the color wheel, that's your cool colors. Right? So these are colors made from blues and greens and violet, except red, violet. Cool colors, I associate those with night, with something that's very calming, soothing. I personally enjoy a cool color scheme over a warm color scheme any day. I just find them more appealing to me. Cool colors, yellow, green, blue, blue, violet, and violet. They make up the other half of the color wheel. All right, complementary colors. Now these are colors that are directly opposite one another on the color wheel. Every color on that color wheel, every color has a complement. Okay. Now a complement meaning that they work well together. They are appealing to the eye. Okay. Now we're just, every color again has a complementary color, but we're just going to focus on the primaries and their complements. Right. So our first one is red. Now directly across from red on the color wheel is green. The way I remember this is I think about Christmas. Okay, Christmas colors are complementary, red and green. When they are combined, theoretically, they will create brown. They neutralize, they cancel each other out. When they meet in the middle, they cancel each other out and they make a neutral color, a brown. Now, when you go to do this with paint, they're not going to create the brown that you think of, right? They're going to create a shade of a brown. Depending on the amount of green or the amount of red in, they could go either way, but they make kind of this murky, just ugly brown. It would be a brown that you would never really want to use as a paint color. The reason why is because this is a theory and it's saying you have to mix it in equal parts, but that's not true either, because some of our values or some of our colors have darker values. Remember that blue and that yellow when I was talking about intensity and saturation and value? The blue is already a darker value. So again, whenever you go to paint, you will see what I'm talking about, but it's not going to create brown like you are used to. Yellow's complement. Directly across from yellow is violet. And I always think, think of something, think of LA Lakers or Planet Fitness, or there's so many other sports teams. The Vikings that use yellow and violet. And whenever these colors, I think the Ravens, whenever these colors are mixed together, they directly meet in that middle. They're going to neutralize each other, cancel each other out, and make that brown color. I wanted to say something else. I like to talk about hair. Boys, you might have no idea what I'm talking about, but some of the girls might. When you have you ever heard of purple shampoo, ladies? This is something that when you have blonde hair and you want to get the gross part out of your hair, that yellow out of your hair, you want it to look more neutralized and natural looking, you put purple shampoo in your hair. Because what is that doing? That's canceling out the yellow and it's making it more of a neutral. Going back to the red, if you've been in a pool, it happens to, this is all about blondes, but if you were in a pool and you've got chlorine in the pool, and a few summers ago, I was in the pool all the time before all this COVID stuff happened, and my hair got this greenish tint to it. Okay, so what do I need to do to get the green out? They don't make a red shampoo, but you can put ketchup in your hair. So yes, you best believe it, I was putting ketchup all up in my hair, and it pulls out the green. It neutralizes the green, and it makes it look better. I washed it, don't worry. All right, so blue's complement. Directly across from blue on the color wheel is orange. Think about the basketball team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, or maybe the New York Knicks or the Mets. Those are the only things I can think of that are blue and orange. Or really, if you know Miss Sesses, you should totally always think about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Woohoo! That's my team. That's what my dog is named after. But anyway, when these colors mix together, they meet in the middle, they neutralize each other, and they make brown. Analogous colors. Now, I don't know why this is such a hard color scheme for my students to comprehend, but every semester, every year, I have so much confusion with this, and I don't know how to how else to explain it. So just be conscious that this is, I don't know why it's so conceptually hard for everybody to understand. But analogous simply means a group of three colors next to each other on the color wheel. You have to know the color wheel in order to understand these colors. So if you look at the image down below, there are three colors really represented in this. Yes, they might be different values, but there are three, colors being represented in this, and that is red, violet, red, red, orange. Okay, so those are analogous. They are right next to each other on the color scheme. The one below there, or the next one, okay, there are three colors really being represented in this, and that's yellow, green, green, and blue, green. Those three colors are right next to each other on the color wheel. And our last one, okay, the three colors that are being represented in this are yellow, orange, yellow, and yellow, green. Yes, I'm kind of twisting it a little bit. Again, there are shades of those colors in there. It's not the pure straight from that color wheel that's being put on here, but those are the three main colors. So an analogous color scheme, three colors next to each other on the color wheel. They have to be right next to each other. Okay? Color is such a cool, fun element to work with. There's so much more to it. There's so many fun things that you can really learn about color. Even in culture, your culture plays a role in how you interpret and understand colors. In some cultures, red is associated with importance. Orange represents warmth, harvest. Some cultures, instead of wearing white for a wedding, you wear, like in India, you wear a bright color. You don't wear white because white in India, I think, is representative of mourning or of sadness. In some cultures, black is what we, like in our culture, black usually is associated with bad luck or with death. And it's not that way in other cultures. So color is a very strong element, and that's why we've studied it so much. I just, violet is a symbol of royalty or of wealth. Blue in other cultures is sometimes in ours we call, you look blue, you look sad, you look depressed. In others, blue is associated with luck, with safety, okay, with religion. So really, it depends on the culture in which you come from. But what you're going to do with this entire unit is work with paints, and you're going to work on some working with different color schemes and really understanding that color wheel. If you understand the color wheel, you will understand the placement of colors.